In 1961, a grandmother in rural Alabama treated her grandson's infected wound with kitchen honey and a strip of torn bedsheet. The nearest hospital that would admit black patients was 60 miles away. She did not have a car, but what she did have was a glass full of honey. The wound healed in 9 days. Decades later, the FDA approved medical-grade honey as a clinical wound treatment, and hospitals started paying $45 a tube for the same ingredient she had been using from a jar that cost 50 cents. That remedy is number 17 on this list. Number 15 was dismissed as an old wives' tale until oncologists started prescribing the exact same thing to chemotherapy patients. Number 8 was so common in black households that an entire skincare empire was built on it without ever crediting the women who used it first. These remedies were not superstition. They were medicine, practiced by women who were locked out of the doctor's office and figured out how to heal their families from the kitchen. If you are new here, tell us where you are watching from in the comments. We are always interested to know where our viewers are tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe. Number 20. Baking soda paste on bee stings and bug bites. A spoonful of baking soda mixed with a few drops of water into a thick paste, pressed onto the sting, and left until it dried. The itch stopped in minutes. The swelling went down within the hour. A box of baking soda cost 20 cents. Dermatologists now confirm that the alkaline paste neutralizes the acidic compounds in insect venom. A grandmother in Jackson did not know the word alkaline. She knew her grandson stopped crying when she put the paste on. That was enough science for her. Number 19. Clove oil on a toothache. A cotton ball soaked in clove oil and pressed directly onto the aching tooth. The pain stopped almost instantly. Clove oil contains eugenol, a compound so effective as a dental analgesic that dentists still use it in clinical settings today. A small bottle costs less than $1 at the drugstore. A dental visit cost $30 in 1965, and that was only if the dentist would see you. For black families in the rural South who lived hours from the nearest dentist, willing to treat them, clove oil was not an alternative. It was the only option. The fact that it actually worked was the difference between a child screaming through the night and a child sleeping through it. Number 18. Warm salt water gargle for a sore throat. A teaspoon of salt, dissolved in a glass of warm water, gargled for 30 seconds, spit out, repeated. The soreness faded within hours. The Mayo Clinic now officially recommends this as a first-line treatment for pharyngitis. The salt draws moisture from the swollen tissue through osmosis and creates an environment that bacteria cannot survive in. A box of salt cost a dime. A doctor's visit cost a day's wages. Grandmothers chose the salt. But wait until you hear what number 15 did for nausea that took the medical world 40 years to validate. Number 17. Honey on burns and cuts. Raw honey spread directly onto a burn or a shallow wound and covered with a clean cloth. The burn stopped blistering. The cut stopped getting infected. Honey is a natural antibacterial because its low moisture content and acidic pH create conditions that kill bacteria on contact. It also contains hydrogen peroxide in concentrations low enough to clean a wound without damaging the tissue. Hospitals now use a product called MediHoney that costs $45 a tube. A jar of kitchen honey cost 50 cents in 1960 and did the same thing. The Alabama grandmother who treated her grandson's infection with honey and a bedsheet was practicing wound care that a $1.2 million study would take 4 more years to validate. She did not need the study. She needed her grandson to heal. He did. Number 16. Vapor rub on the feet for a cold. A thick layer of vapor rubbed onto the soles of the feet, covered with socks, applied before bed. By morning, the cough had quieted and the congestion had loosened. Pediatricians now acknowledge that menthol and eucalyptus vapors suppress the cough reflex, and the nerve endings in the feet respond to the cooling sensation in ways that promote rest. A jar cost less than $2. It sat on the nightstand of every black grandmother like a medical degree in a glass container. Children who argued with their grandmothers about this grew up and rubbed vapor rub on their own children's feet the first time they got sick. The jar won every argument it was ever in. Number 14 involved a remedy so strange that doctors laughed at it for decades before admitting it worked. Number 15. Ginger tea for nausea. Fresh ginger root peeled, sliced and boiled in water for 10 minutes, strained into a cup with a spoonful of honey. Sipped slowly. The nausea faded before the cup was empty. Oncologists now prescribe ginger to chemotherapy patients to manage treatment-induced nausea. Clinical trials have confirmed that gingerol, the active compound in ginger, is a more effective antiemetic than several pharmaceutical options. A knob of ginger root costs 15 cents. The prescription alternative costs $70. Grandmothers who boiled ginger on the stove every time a child got carsick or a pregnant daughter could not keep food down were practicing evidence-based medicine 40 years before the evidence existed. Number 14. Onion poultice on the chest for congestion. A raw onion sliced in half, warmed slightly, wrapped in a cloth, and laid on the chest. The congestion loosened within an hour. The remedy sounds absurd until you learn that the sulfur compounds in raw onion are documented mucolytics, meaning they break up mucus in the bronchial passages. A grandmother in Birmingham used onion poultices on her 5 children every winter for 20 years. Her neighbors thought she was crazy. Her children missed fewer school days than any family on the block. She did not know the word mucolytic. She knew her children could breathe in the morning. That was the clinical trial. Here is what nobody talks about when they discuss these remedies. Black grandmothers did not choose home medicine because they preferred it. They chose it because the American healthcare system refused to treat them. Segregated hospitals turned black patients away. White doctors refused to see black families. Rural communities had no clinics within driving distance. And when black families could access medical care, they were charged more, treated worse, and experimented on without consent, often enough that the distrust was earned. The women who developed these remedies were not rejecting modern medicine. They were excluded from it. And in that exclusion, they built a parallel system of care using honey, ginger, salt, and everything else they could find in the kitchen. Pharmaceutical companies spent the next 50 years studying the same ingredients, putting them in bottles, and selling them back to the communities that had been using them for free. Number 13. Epsom salt baths for sore muscles. 2 cups of Epsom salt dissolved in a hot bath. 30 minutes of soaking. The aches faded and the tension released. Magnesium sulfate absorbed through the skin relaxes muscles and reduces inflammation. Sports medicine clinics now prescribe Epsom salt baths to professional athletes. A bag cost less than $1 and lasted a month. Grandmothers who worked double shifts as housekeepers, cooks, and laundry workers came home and soaked in Epsom salt baths every night because they had to be able to stand up again the next morning. The bath was not a luxury. It was maintenance. Number 12. Cod liver oil every morning. A tablespoon forced down a child's throat every morning before school. Children gagged. Children cried. Grandmothers did not care. The spoon went in whether you liked it or not. Cod liver oil contains omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D in concentrations that doctors now prescribe in capsule form for brain development, joint health, and immune function. A bottle cost less than $1 in 1960. The capsules cost $15 today. The only difference is the packaging. Grandmothers who pinched a child's nose and poured it in were delivering the same prescription that a pediatrician now writes on a pad. Number 11. Mixed something even more controversial into the cure. Number 11. A hot toddy for a cold. A shot of whiskey, a squeeze of lemon, a spoonful of honey, and hot water. sipped slowly before bed. The honey coated the throat. The lemon provided vitamin C. The whiskey promoted sleep. The hot water delivered the steam that loosened congestion. Doctors now call this symptom management. Grandmothers called it a hot toddy, and they made it without being asked, and left it on the nightstand, and the cold was shorter every single time. The American Medical Association does not officially endorse whiskey as medicine. Every black grandmother who ever made a hot toddy does not care. The medical establishment validated these remedies one by one over the past 30 years, but never once credited the communities that practiced them. Honey became meaty honey. Ginger became an anti-emetic protocol. Oatmeal became colloidal oatmeal and built a billion-dollar skincare brand. Peppermint became an FDA-recognized treatment for irritable bowel syndrome. Every single one of these remedies followed the same path. A grandmother used it for free. A pharmaceutical company studied it for a decade. A corporation packaged it and sold it for 40 times the price. And the grandmother, who had been using it since 1953, never saw a penny and never received a thank you. Number 10. Aloe vera straight from the plant. A leaf snapped off the plant on the kitchen windowsill, split open, and the gel rubbed directly onto a burn, a sunburn, or a rash. The cooling was instant. The healing was faster than anything from a tube. Aloe vera is now the active ingredient in burn creams that cost $8 to $15 a bottle. The plant cost nothing. It grew on the windowsill in a coffee can full of dirt. It asked for nothing except occasional water, and it gave back medicine every time someone got burned at the stove. Number 9. Peppermint tea for headaches and stomach problems. Dried peppermint leaves steeped in hot water for 5 minutes. Sipped for headaches, sipped for bloating, sipped for cramps. Peppermint oil is now an FDA-recognized treatment for IBS. The menthol relaxes smooth muscle in the digestive tract and constricts blood vessels that cause tension headaches. A box of peppermint tea costs less than $1. The prescription version of the same active ingredient costs $25 a month. Number 8. Oatmeal baths for chickenpox and rashes. A sock filled with dry oatmeal, tied off, and dropped into a warm bath. The child soaked for 30 minutes. The itching stopped. The skin calmed. Colloidal oatmeal is now an FDA-approved skin protectant. An entire skincare empire was built on what black grandmothers did with a sock and a cup of Quaker Oats in the bathtub. The company never credited them. The dermatologists who now recommend oatmeal baths never mention where the practice came from. But every black child who had chickenpox in the 1960s and 70s can tell you exactly who put them in that tub. Number 7. Castor oil rubbed on joints for pain. Castor oil warmed between the palms and rubbed directly onto aching knees, elbows, and shoulders. A flannel cloth soaked in warm castor oil and laid over the joint for an hour. Ricinoleic acid, the primary compound in castor oil, is a documented anti-inflammatory. Clinical studies confirm that topical application reduces pain and swelling in arthritic joints. A bottle cost less than $1 and lasted months. Grandmothers who rubbed castor oil on their own knees every night after working 12-hour shifts were self-administering a treatment that rheumatologists now charge $200 a visit to recommend. Number 6. Raw garlic for infection. A clove of garlic crushed, sometimes eaten raw, sometimes pressed against an infected area wrapped in a cloth. Allicin, the compound released when garlic is crushed, is a proven antimicrobial with antibacterial and antifungal properties documented in clinical research. A bulb of garlic cost a nickel. Antibiotics cost a prescription and a doctor's visit that most black families in the 1950s could not access. But number 3 made the same medicine as a $12 bottle of cough syrup for less than a penny. There is a generation alive right now that is the last living connection to these remedies as they were actually practiced, not as a list on the internet, As a system of care taught by watching a grandmother move through a sick house at 2 in the morning, knowing exactly which jar to reach for, exactly how much to use, exactly where to put it. She did not read a study. She read the child. She knew the difference between a fever that needed ginger tea and a fever that needed a cold cloth and a prayer. That diagnostic skill, built across 50 years of caring for people without professional help, cannot be replaced by a Google search. When the last grandmother who practiced medicine this way is gone, the knowledge does not transfer to a database. It disappears. Number 5. Chamomile tea for sleep and anxiety. Chamomile steeped in hot water and given to restless children and worried adults before bed. The compound apigenin in chamomile binds to the same receptors in the brain that benzodiazepine medications target. Clinical studies confirm a mild sedative effect. A box of chamomile tea costs less than $1. The prescription sleep medication that targets the same receptor costs $150 a month. Number 4. Prune juice for constipation. A glass of prune juice given to any child or adult who had not gone to the bathroom in 2 days. No discussion, no negotiation. The prune juice was poured and you drank it. Sorbitol, a natural sugar alcohol in prunes, is a documented osmotic laxative. Gastroenterologists still recommend prune juice as the first-line treatment before prescribing medication. A bottle costs less than $1 and solved the problem by morning. The prescription alternative costs $30 and does the same thing slower. Number 3. Lemon and honey for a cough. A spoonful of honey mixed with a squeeze of fresh lemon taken straight or stirred into warm water. The honey coated the irritated throat. The lemon's acidity cut through the mucus. Together they suppress the cough long enough to sleep. Cough syrup manufacturers now use both honey and lemon as active ingredients and charge $12 a bottle. A grandmother who squeezed a lemon into a spoonful of honey was making the same medicine for less than a penny. Number 2. Mustard plaster on the chest. Dry mustard powder mixed with flour and warm water into a paste, spread on a cloth, and laid across the chest for 15 to 20 minutes. The heat from the mustard increased blood flow to the lungs and loosened deep congestion. Capsaicin, the active compound in mustard, is a documented vasodilator. The remedy has appeared in medical literature since the 1800s. A grandmother in Memphis made mustard plasters for her family every winter for 30 years. She mixed the paste on the kitchen counter at midnight while a child wheezed in the next room. She did not call it a vasodilator. She called it getting the sick out. The sick came out. Number 1. The kitchen. There is no remedy at number 1 because the greatest medicine in any black household was not a single ingredient. It was the room that held all of them. The jar of honey on the counter, the aloe plant on the windowsill in a coffee can full of dirt, the Vapo rub on the nightstand, the clove oil in the cabinet, the ginger root in the crisper, the Epsom salt under the bathroom sink, the bottle of castor oil that had been there since before the children were born. That kitchen was a pharmacy. It was a clinic. It was an emergency room that never closed, never charged, and never turned anyone away. A woman who could not get her family into a hospital built one in her own house using 19 ingredients that cost less than $20 combined. The medical establishment spent a century dismissing that kitchen. Pharmaceutical companies spent a decade studying what was in it. And the woman who assembled it, who knew which shelf to reach for at 2 in the morning when a child was wheezing or burning up or crying from an earache, never received a license or a degree or a thank you. She just opened the cabinet, reached for the right jar, and went to work. The kitchen is still there in some houses. The jars are still on the shelf, but the woman who knew what each one was for is not standing in front of them anymore. And nobody has memorized the order. Here is my challenge. Call your grandmother this week, or your mother, or your auntie. Ask her about the remedy she used when you were sick, the one she never explained, the one you thought was strange until you grew up and realized it worked. Write it down, because medical journals are only now proving what she figured out 60 years ago with a jar of honey and a prayer. Drop the remedy your grandmother swore by in the comments. I want to know if the Vapor Rub on the feet gets more love than the mustard plaster. I want to know if anyone else's grandmother chased them around the kitchen with a spoonful of cod liver oil, because these were not old wives' tales. They were a medical tradition built by women who healed their families when nobody else would, using science the world had not caught up to yet.